The following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers' 33rd Annual Convention. We take you live to the Renaissance Suites Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, where our session is just getting underway.
This is the NDA session, and it is taped. And it's important that it gets taped because this will be a very informative session for tapes later. Even though we have a small crowd, it's very important that we... Well, I mean, there's only 300 people in the room, and I expected 5, so... my purpose is, as chairman of the board, Tim Crawford, is just to introduce our speakers. Yona Chalk, representing NDA. She's also our very own CALLERLAB member, which is wonderful. And our very own CALLERLAB member, Cal Campbell, who is our representative to NDA. And this discussion is being taped, so we'd like you to use the microphone for all your questions. Lots of handouts. Those handouts will be available from the home office, and I will turn it over to Cal.
All right. First thing I'd like to encourage you to do is once you bring your chairs up, there's a small number here, and this will facilitate passing the mic around. Since we have to use the mic, we are going to. I mean really, bring your chairs up. Up. The whole chairs. Let's get up here in a small circle to where we can talk. All right? Right. Okay, I think probably it is more apropos for me to get the NDA representative to work because I was introduced to the idea of the National Dance Association by Yona. And we need to give you a little bit of history, and part of that is the fact that she was in the NDA as an active participant long before Caller became involved with the organization. And so I'd like to have her tell you about her experiences, how she got interested in what she's doing today.
Yona Chalk, Hawaii. I was asked by a personal friend if I would be willing to serve on the Hawaii Alliance for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance as the dance chairperson. And she said, we just meet twice a year. She lied. They met monthly, and they had 2 seminars a year, which they presented to the university students of the University of Hawaii, of Hawaii Pacific University, the Church College at Laie, and they offer information on health, physical education, recreation, and dance. As the chairperson of the state organization, I automatically became the vice chair, or the whatever it was, vice president for Hawaii for AFERD, which is the, take a deep breath everyone, American Alliance for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. This is the flyer for their annual convention and exposition. This organization, I didn't even know it existed, and I've been in dance all my life. When I became the state chairperson, I was working only in the state of Hawaii. Then we had a regional conference which met in Hawaii, and I discovered that there are a whole lot more organizations in every state, and every state has a dance chairperson. Then I became aware that there is a national organization. Then I became aware that the National Dance Association is one small part of this great big alliance, which is funded by the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and it's huge. They do advocacy, government advocacy for getting physical education, recreation, and health into the school, and dance into the schools, into offices, into every aspect of life. They are working to promote health, physical education, recreation, dance. They have a conference coming up in Salt Lake City in 3 weeks, April 25 to 29, and we will be attending that and presenting information. There's a handout here which has our picture. We did community dance there from 1997 until 95, I guess, and then Cal took over the community dance. I've been jumping up and down and screaming at CALLERLAB for years that they ought to get in on this. You know how fast CALLERLAB moves on these things. At any rate, finally Cal took a look at it, and I think he was impressed. At any rate, he started doing the community dance program for them 2 years ago, and we picked colonial American dancing as one small part of our program at their request, and we're doing it again this year at their request because it fits in with the educational program of sneaking dance into the schools. Al? 5 years, yeah, and then Cal took over, and then we're doing the other. Okay, you're supposed to be on mic when you make comments. We taught for 5 years. Yeah, big deal. The national convention is actually an international convention because people come from England, Japan, all over the United States, Canada, to see what we're doing in education in America, and they come to this conference to find out. So when we're presenting how to teach in the schools, how to teach dance in the schools, we're reaching a humongous cross-section of the public. Cal will be doing it again this year. See you there. And we'll be doing it there. The flyers up here on the table, or the handouts up here on the table, include dance education, which covers all forms of dance, from creative to jazz, ballet, whatever, all kinds. Not just participatory dance, but also theater-type dance and everything. Pick up one of these. This is dance resources. They have websites you can go to and pick up information for the National Dance Association. The other things that they do are they have publications, products, and services. They have a catalog. If you go to page 46, their catalog's up here, you will find that one of the things that they are endorsing is a book called Dancing for Busy People, which was written by Cal Campbell. Yeah, I remember that fellow. And Bob Howell and Ken Kernan. At any rate, it and the CD are endorsed by the National Dance Association. I didn't ask you how sales are going because of this, but they should pick up after the convention this year. Anyway, pick up one of these. There's all kinds of stuff in here, not just dance, health, dance activities for senior citizens, any which way that you can think of to sell square dancing. They've got the research done on it. They're funded for research, so they have done tremendous research. And when CALLERLAB started talking about selling square dancing and researching what was good about square dancing, I said, it's all been done. It's all been done. Contact them and download their information. It took them a while to get organized on that. I don't know if they've done it yet or not. At any rate, they also put out a publication. The National Dance Association puts out a publication called Spotlight on Dance, which contains articles on a wide variety of dance things, brain-compatible dance education. They have a National Scholar Award that's given every year. They represent teacher, or they have Teachers of the Year for dance. They have advocacy across the globe. They have things on kinesiology, dance, using your body. Pick up a copy and take it home, and please read it. It comes every month. When you join your state organization, you also will join the national. You get to join 2 organizations. One, of course, would be National Dance, since that's our field, but they also have subgroups for women and girls and women in sports. I can't remember all 6. NASB. On the back of this one, here it is. Thank you. Wait. Let me do it on the mic so that they can hear me. Association for Active Leisure Styles and Fitness, American Association for Health, and one of the small subgroups of the American Association for Health is the American Heart Association. If you have any idea how big that is, you have an idea what size umbrella we're talking about. American Association for Leisure Recreation, American Association for Girls and Women in Sport, and the National Association for Sport and Physical Education. It's huge. It's just mind-boggling how big this thing is, and CALLERLAB should have been in it years ago, and now we're in it. We need to go with it. I would like to see some square dancer in every state get involved on the state level, and hopefully move on to regional and eventually get some representation in national. The National Dance Association is very much aware of the fact that commercial dance studios get an undeserved share of the attention in dance because they have a vested interest in selling their product. Square dancing, because it is a cooperative community thing, we're not selling it like a product. And if we could get into national dance, we could get a bigger voice in funding, in publicity, and so forth. The pictures in here are all of creative dance or ballet or something like that. They should be pictures of people square dancing in a variety of different costumes to show them the possibilities of what's available. Cal, you want to take over?
Okay, history-wise, the introduction into the National Dancing Association, as far as CALLERLAB's introduction, was basically the suggestion of Jim Hensley, who we hired to do quite a bit of promotional work, and he contacted the National Dance Association. Our immediate contact, or first contact, was with the president of the National Dance Association, and her was a Dr. Fran Meyer. And when we met in Richmond, Virginia, Dr. Meyer lived in Fredericksburg, and so it was easy access to get together with us for a meeting. I was part of that meeting primarily because of the committee activities for, at that time, the Committee on Community Dance. We sat down and we met with Dr. Meyer, and Dr. Meyer is a modern dance teacher. But her parents were square dancers, and her parents became ill together almost simultaneously and died within a very short period of time of each other. The square dancers showed up at their funerals in square dance costumes en masse. Tremendously impressed Dr. Meyer, and she says, I need to know more about this. It's strange how a small incident like that will tip the scales, because she was also the president of the NDA for 2 years because the succeeding president could not take over the office, so she stayed for 2 years. We had 2 years of top-level access into that organization of someone who was interested in what was going on. And so this is the start. You know, from little seeds that you plant, big trees grow. Okay, the follow-up on that was another NDA president. I can't remember her name right now, but she was in Colorado and had moved up to Woodland Park. That's close to me. And so we had a very good chance to be able to sit down and talk to each other. I had done a contract for the Colorado Springs school system, and I had 30 teachers, and she came down and attended the workshop. Got done with the workshop and says, you need to come to the National Convention and do this sort of thing at the National Convention. Once again, serendipity is what's happening here. I mean, it was just someone who was interested, someone who was living close. Now we are to the stage of where both Yona and I have been on the hot seat at the National Convention. This year, I did a workshop. We all right? Okay, I did a workshop for the district convention that this year was held in Broomfield, Colorado. Love these serendipities. You know, and this is 11 states that we have that go basically from Colorado north, kind of spreads out in kind of a fan. There are other district conventions that are held every year, and these are affairs that draw 1,000 people. National draws 7,000 to 10,000 people a year. The district conventions draw around 1,000 to 1,500, and actually the audiences between the two are different. The people that go to the National Convention, the people who go to their Central District Convention, are almost two different packages of people completely. Okay, that's item one. Item number two, National Dance Association, somewhere along the line, got the reputation that they were doing nothing for the classroom teacher. Now, whether this is justified or not is not to argue. The idea is the reputation was there. What Yona does and what I do at these national conventions is aimed directly at the classroom teacher. So we are very much considered to be friends of the cause. And we're not coming in as foreigners. We are coming in to welcome open arms as friends of the cause for the National Dance Association. This opportunity is open, friends, in every district of AFERD in the entire country if we can provide the resources to these people to be able to provide the programs. Point blank. That's what I want you to hear. Okay, think about, someone once said, and I wish I could find the quote, that if you want to affect the world, become a teacher. If you want to change the world, teach the teachers. When she and I go to the conferences, we are teaching the teachers. This is where it's going to have the largest impact on what happens to the generation of children, young adults, and adults coming up. That's where the impact is going to be, if there's any impact at all. I think the market's there. I really think the market's there. Because when I do my workshop, and I'm sure you're the same way, we've got 85 to 90 to 100 people that attend at the national conventions. If you go to a district convention, I think probably you're going to end up with 25 to 30. No. I got 25 to 30 at the Central District. But these people are the super enthusiastic people about dance, and they are at the workshop because they're open to something other than their specialty, which may be ballet or modern dance. You know, they have a broad range of interest in what's happening in dance, and they're saying, okay, fine, I would like to have an experience doing something other than what I'm currently doing. I think they also realize that they need to look at dance formats that do not require as much physical training in actual dance movement as some of the things they're doing, which would be modern dance and ballet and ballroom and salsa and whatnot like that. I mean, they recognize that there is a population of kids that will eat up salsa and ballet and things like this. But they also recognize a population of children that are not yet to the point, and probably will never be to the point, of where they are going to become expert rumba, cha-cha, salsa. Salsa's a big thing right now. It's the reason I mention it. I mean, it is just huge, I guess, in the schools. But they realize that there's a population of kids that they have to provide dance to that are not going to be able to do these dances. And we've got the material for them. I mean, literally, we've got the material for them. A couple of things that thought I would pass on. Doing the program itself, I think probably we have a number of people in this room, and I know of, that are within the organization, could do a very adequate program. But there are certain hoops you got to jump through. It is literally easier to get on the program at the national convention and the district convention than it is at the local state association. I mean, this is interesting because at the national convention and the district convention, you go on a website, there is a form you fill out. If you fill out the form correctly with the correct buzzwords, then the review committee is going to say, yes, this is something we want to have. You get communication back from the dance chair, and you're on the program. At least in the state of Colorado, it's who you know. And who you know changes every year. You know, at the district level and the national level, it's a committee. At the state level, it's a person, and that person changes every year. And frankly, once you're in the loop, basically, if you're doing a good job and the feedback forms, the evaluation forms that come back are complimentary, they want to keep you in the loop because there are few bodies in that loop can do a competent job, right? And so if you've got a product, and that's what we're talking about, folks. If you've got a product that they like and the feedback forms that come back from the attendees is good, your chances of getting in the program the next year are very high. At the state level, it depends on who's the dance chair and what their particular interests are. And so there's little things like that. The other thing is you need to do is there is a national set of standards that the states or the schools can adopt. And the standards contain all kinds of political buzzwords. And if you'll hand me mine, let me show you what mine says. I'll read it to you because it's very, the little one with the pictures on it. It describes what my session does. Now I want you to listen to this. Quick to learn, easy taught dances that are fun for the participants and the teacher. A variety of formations will be taught, including big circles, etc. Music will include reels, marches, pop, waltz. Dancers will learn to hear and understand, and this is the key part, respond to directional commands for dance patterns that involve more than one dancer in coordination with another. That's the buzzwords they want to hear. The dancers will learn to move in linear and curved pathways. Those were the two key words that I had to pick up out of the dance standards to put down. The curved and linear pathways is what the teacher needs to take back to the principal and say, here are the dance standards. This part will meet my obligation to teach this skill. Got her? In other words, all I am doing is doing essentially what we do. It's a language of its own that has to do with academia, just like square dancing is a language of its own that has to do with our communication with the people. It allows the teacher to go back to the administration and say, I would like to insert the following dances and it meets this criteria on my list of requirements. Okay? You want to speak to that?
Before they had the national standards, and I was working on the state level, we had a list of 11 conditions that had to be met for dance in the school or for the program. One of them was you had to be able to justify teaching the environmental awareness. And we went through our square dance list and we made up something for everything. And when we got to that one, I was able to say that your environment is not just your physical environment, it is also your social environment, and tied it in that way. So buzzwords change every year. Now that we have a national dance standard, if you go there and write up your description, as Cal has done, using the words that are used in the national standards so that you touch on each of the standards, when you put your if you're interested in going into the schools and teaching or teaching the teachers to teach, if you write up your description of what you plan to do using those words, then when the teachers apply for funding or for permission to use time in the classroom and so forth, they've already got it in print and they can go directly through. We work as artistic, what do they call us now, artistic teaching partners. We used to be artists in residence, now we're artistic teaching partners. Went and got special training for this, whoop-de-doo. But the reason we can get hired and paid to work in the schools is that the teachers just look at our proposal and they can photocopy it and send it in as their proposal. So you do the work for them. It's a lot easier to sell a product.
Okay. This is the hoop jumping that you've got to go through. And it's not hard. One of the things that was very educational to me was I wanted to know how the buzzwords work. I worked for the government for 33 years. I am intimately involved in what buzzwords are required in order to be able to jump through these hoops, but I didn't know which ones they wanted. One of the educational things to me is out of the long list of things that are listed in this set of requirements, you don't have to meet all of them, you only have to meet one. And so I picked out the one that was the most appropriate, I felt, and it's only one I have to meet. And as long as it meets that, apparently this meets the whole structure. At the national level, each of us have to write a formal paper. A white paper is limited to 5 pages, and that includes the introductory part. And the format that they will send you is quite restrictive. The format that they will accept is much less so. Both Yona and I write entirely within the format that they require. I figured I can do it, I just as well do it. Many of the other presenters just hand them a paper and says, if you don't like this, don't print it. Okay? But this is part of what you have to do. At the district level, you don't have to write a paper. At the local state level, you do not have to write a paper. So preparing on what? In Hawaii, but there, you know, this may be a hoop that you have to jump through. If this is the hoop that you have to jump through, if anybody wants to tackle this, I would be more than happy. I'm a wordsmith. I'd be more than happy to take your program and help it jump through the hoops. I mean, I write fast and I write quick, and I know the routine for how this is done for universities and all these sort of stuff, and I will help you if you want to tackle it. Okay, so this is where we are in terms of what's happening. Now, the type of program. Let me address this a little bit. Yona, and then I'd like to have Yona address what she's going to do. In talking to the classroom teachers about what do you need, in other words, we're not talking about a classroom teacher that has any training in dance. We're talking about a classroom teacher that has 0 training. We're talking about a classroom teacher that will not, and believe me, I mean, will not use a microphone. All right? And so we're talking about a person who says, well, I think dancing would be fun to do in my class. However, I know nothing about dance. I have never had any training in dance. I have never got on the floor and even done the boogaloo. That's what we're talking about. Right. What sort of a program would you like to have? And my reference point was a lady by the name of Chris Convoy, who is very active in physical education in Colorado Springs. I said, Chris, what do you need to have? She says, I need a program that is cookbook style. I need to go and sit down the night before, pick out a couple of dances I'm going to teach the next day, and have a cookbook and have it written out for me to the place where I can pick it up, walk into class, put on the dance music, which I don't have, by the way, and do the dance and let them do it. Not lead it, not prompt it, not call it, do it. Okay, what does this imply? Dance routines. It implies that the number of basics that she needs to memorize in order to accomplish this needs to be very few. It implies that she can put the music on that somebody hands to her pre-canned and pre-recommended and teach the dance to the kids and then back out of the way and let them do it. Okay, when I did the workshop in Colorado Springs, I took Chris's comments to heart, and I prepared an 8-hour workshop based on 7 basics. We had 30 teachers, of which 5 were music teachers, and the rest of them were all PE. And of the group, there was only 4 out of the 5 that ever danced before in their life. Most of those were the music teachers, obviously. Afterwards, we had an evaluation session about what had gone on during the day. And of course, you know, if I've got 6 to 8 hours, this means I'm going to be having to give them more material than I would at a party. And I had several of the teachers say, well, this stuff is wonderful, but you have just overwhelmed us with material. You've buried us. Okay, tell me more about what you're talking about. and they fed back to me. And what it came back to is there was too much terminology to memorize. 7 basics, too much terminology to memorize. And so what I've prepared for the NDA, and if you will all take a copy of this, is been prepared around 5 basics. And the 5 basics are circle left, circle right, that's a given, forward and back, arm turns, stars, and pass through. Okay, let's repeat that. Circle left and circle right, arm turns, stars, and pass through. Okay, take a look at those 5 basics. Any group of children can circle left and circle right that I've ever met in my life from the first grade on and perhaps earlier. Forward and back's almost a given. You need to teach them a little bit about, 4 steps forward, clap hands, and back up. And so we're really only dealing with stars and how do you make a star, arm turns and how you do this, and pass through. And basically, if you wanted to cut it down even more, an arm turn can be defined as a 2-hand star. Jack Murthaugh pointed this out very much, that arm turns can be done. So we could be dealing with effectively 4. The other aspect of this particular sheet is the fact that none of the dances require gender identification. You have to have partners, but the gender identification has been left out. That took an adaptation dance. I get variety for the teacher and variety for my part by 2 things. Number 1 is I change formation. In other words, squares, if you look at squares, we all love the square dance. From the teacher's aspect, it's a very restrictive form of dance. It's not real adaptable for the classroom, for one thing. You can take the chairs and push them back, or the tables that they now use, and push them back and create an aisle down the middle. Or you can take them and bunch them all in the center and put a circle around the outside if you're in a classroom situation. It's very difficult to deal with squares. You can do contras, you can do big circle dances, you can do Sicilian circles in the classroom much easier than you can do squares. In other words, squares become the difficult point because you have to have even 4 pairs. You can do the rest of these dances with whatever's in the classroom. Okay, that's point 1 I get variety out of. Point 2 is I went to the Lloyd Shaw Foundation and went through their library and picked out 20 tunes and put them on a CD. That's $1 a tune. And Palomino sells them, and they'll make whatever they want, so that I can hand something to them as pre-canned. This is in cookbook style. For the people on the tape, the rest of them are looking at their sheets. The top part of the description of each dance is what to say and when to say it. And it's not in any archaic form. It's laid out in the first 8 beats of the introduction. If there's an introduction on this piece, you wait 6 steps and you say circle left, or 6 beats of music and say circle left. Exactly what to say. The teacher doesn't have to figure out what to say. It's there. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, circle left. And then the next one, I wait for another 8 beats, and then the following 6 beats, and then I say circle right. Lots of time to think. This is also built on other premises that everything that the teacher wants to do needs to be a set routine. Our habit within square dancing is surprising people and working off the cuff doesn't exist in that teacher's world. Not at all. And so what I advise in the paper, and I would give you the paper except for the fact I can't give it to you until after the end of April when it's published. I will put it on the web for those of you who want it, and I will be more than happy to send it to you as a PDF. But the paper will be published, and then it comes back to me, and I can go ahead with a reference to where it was published. I can send it out. But in the paper, I talk about the fact, stay with routines. Let the kids use a routine. Why? Because the teachers aren't going to use a mic. They've told me this. They've demonstrated it to me. You put the mic out to them and sweat breaks out on their foreheads. And so I say, teach the dance. The kids will pick it up and then just back out of the way and let them do it. I've done this with a big circle dance, with a contra, with 4 squares. I put this in there because they were easy to put in. And with a Sicilian Circle, which is couples facing couples in a wagon wheel spoke formation around the classroom with all the tables stacked in the middle, if you want to look at it that way. And this is the base of which I think can do. I think these 2 pages of dances, 2 sides of a paper describing the dance, would probably do a classroom teacher probably 3 45-minute sessions without any problem at all. 5 basics and just this much material would satisfy their needs for 45 minutes.
Most schools have some sort of May Day program, and this kind of dance that can be easily committed to memory, the kids can do this as their exposition for the May Day thing. Do you want to continue, or shall I take? Okay. Al and I were teaching community dance program in the schools in Hawaii when the funds for arts of any kind dried up. We saw it coming, and we converted our program from a straight dance program to a social studies unit in American history, Dance Your Way Through American History, Exploring America on Foot, from colonial to contemporary. This allows us to do everything from English country dancing, which was pre-revolutionary, to electric slide or whatever they bring down the pike next year. We are still working in the schools. Everybody that we knew who was doing international folk dancing, creative dance, some other dance form is now unemployed. Because our program is accessible on 2 facets, we're a physical activity, so we meet requirements for physical activity in the classroom, which is very hard for them to do now. There's not much time left with all the computer stuff they've added on for physical education, which incidentally is no longer called physical education in Hawaii. It's kinesiology and leisure science. If you're still doing PE, you're very old-fashioned. Kinesiology and leisure science. If you can't pronounce it, you can't be in the field. Anyway, we get in music programs, we get in PE programs, excuse me, I'm reverting to type, but we also get in the social studies unit, and we have done for the State Teachers Convention workshops on dance for the social studies teachers. So that's yet another facet that we can, another way of approaching getting it into the schools. It stood us in excellent stead. And when Cal decided to join in our drum thumping for AFERD and took over doing the community dance program for AFERD after we'd done it for 5 years, AFERD asked us if we could do one specialized part of our program, and they suggested the colonial dance program, because that, for one thing, the music and dance are very accessible through Colonial Williamsburg, which has a fantastic educational program. If you don't know anything about it, access it. You just download it. It's all free. They send you teacher updates on all kinds of things besides dance programs that you can use to tie your program into the particularly 5th grade education, which is national history, state history, 4th. I'm sorry. Oh, we have a comment from the audience.
I'm Al Chalk. I'm Yona's partner. One unfortunate thing is that this panel is scheduled at the same time as the Education Committee, which has the same purpose in life, so to speak. When Yona got to become dance chair for Hawaii for 5 years, it also enabled her to offer teacher workshops of varying lengths. These were also done at the semi-annual conferences, and also workshops of 4 hours or more in length for B credit. 8 to 16. Okay. And also, it enabled us to get into the schools, which was one of the major problems that a lot of people had. And while it was restricted mainly to us doing it, nevertheless, we became artists in the schools, artists in residence. And she was asked if she would stand for district chair for dance with the Southwest District. However, I told her no, because nobody finances us except us, and we don't have that kind of money. And we may not also do more at the AFERD level because of the fact that it's getting very expensive for us.
That's because we commute from Hawaii.
All right, let's look at the advantages to us within recreation. And I want to be, well, let me finish up a little item here. I'd like to reemphasize the fact that what I'm talking about is not what you can do as a performer, professional teacher with the kids. I'm talking about what the classroom teacher can do with the children before you find them in the gym. Think about how nice it would be to have a whole gym full of children that already knew what a square was, what facing lines of four was, how to listen to a caller, how to respond to spoken commands, and knew these 5 basics. How much we could do with them in 45 minutes. Okay. We don't have time, most of us don't have time, to go spend an extended amount of time in schools. That classroom teacher is there every day. And if we've got this much knowledge into the children, and they've had fun, in other words, we provide them routines and with music that they've had fun doing, then we've laid down a big, broad foundation. Then you can come into the schools and do this. When they get to college and they're looking around for something fun to do, they'll say, well, let's try out square dancing, and we're off and running again. When I was a child growing up, and Yona was a child growing up, all these long years ago, every child danced that could dance. Every child dance could dance. I learned how to square dance starting in the 4th grade. I got my infection with this as a totally consuming hobby when I was in college. I can tell you a number of callers who came out of college square dance clubs who are still active in the recreation. We have to start a new generation, folks. Where do we start it? We started in kindergarten. Not with square dancing in kindergarten, but we start the process in kindergarten. I forget the reference, I wish I could give it to you, but 80% of the children choose their recreational preferences by the time they're 9. By the time they're 9 years old, they've already decided what they want to do recreationally. Make sense? And so we're talking about here, I tell Judy and I have talked about the fact, at this point in our life, we're Johnny Appleseed. We're taking the seeds out of the apples of the trees that we were privileged to sit under and the people we were privileged to listen to. And we're going out and we're putting them in, we hope, is fertile ground. And we will never see that next tree bear fruit. We're too old. But we can put water on it and other nutrients. Be careful what you say. And other nutrients. And maybe it'll grow far enough that we can help a little bit in pruning it to see how it's going to grow. And that's all we can do. And so for those of you who do this, it's an investment in the future, not an investment in the next few years. That's all it is. But it's a worthwhile investment as far as I'm concerned to make, because one of the things that Bob Osgood told me years ago, he talked to me. Bob and I were dear, dear friends. And in his last few years of his life, we would have these long, involved telephone conversations. And Bob says, you know, Cal, he says, when I think back on what happened, he said there were about 25 of us that decided we were going to do something with square dancing, and we talked to each other. But he said basically the whole movement was created by 25 callers. We listened to some tapes from that on the previous hour. And so it doesn't take a real large group. It takes a group of people who are dedicated. It takes a group of people who are wide. Look at what we could do if we could get workshops like Yona's doing, workshops like I'm doing, perhaps a different workshop, in these district conventions. I mean, it has a trickle-down, trickle-up effect, because we're not coming in as antagonists to them. We're not coming as intruders. We're coming in a market that is sitting there saying, will you please give us something? I went to Chicago last year. There were 300 vendors on the floor. 300 big displays of hopping games, throwing games, climbing games. You did it. My purpose, I went because I was there as a rep of CALLERLAB. I decided I needed to take a look very comprehensively to see what I could find about square dancing. My book was in the NDA store, Dancing for Busy People, not mine, but mine, Bob's, and Ken's. A book was in the NDA store. The CD was there. There was 3 pages in another book I found. There was one book that had maybe a dozen pages within that book, and that was it for 300 vendors, and probably 50 books about dancing. We have disappeared from the radar. We're gone. How do we get back? I mean, Dance a While wasn't there, which was the standard in colleges for umpteen years, wasn't even there for sailing plays. We've disappeared from the radar. Dancing for Busy People will make a small niche, but it's not going to make that much. What's going to make the impact is going to be people. That's where the impact's going to come. And it's going to take some preparation. And I think I can speak for Yona as well as me. If you want to try it, the people on the tape, if you want to try it, get hold of us, because we can tell you how to jump through the hoops. We will hold your hand. We'll do anything it takes to get it done, because this is the future. This is where the people are going to come from that are going to be doing something in the way of team dancing 30 or 40 or 50 years from now. It may not be called square dancing, but I have a feeling that the fiddle will be there, the guitar will be there, and the team dance will be there, and we'll be doing right and left through, 2 ladies chain, pass through, stars, circles. We'll probably be doing most of the first 15 basics we presently have on our list. What's going to happen to the rest of them, I'm not quite sure. But there is a wealth of dancing within that first 15 to 20 basics that is so deep and so wide and so well documented within the literature that there is very little doubt that it will never disappear. Yona?
I don't think that we'll lose more advanced levels of square dancing, because there's always going to be people that are interested in problem solving who'll get into it and probably stay in it until they go on up to challenge and whatever, and they may come up with some, well, C5 is contra, isn't it? If you go off the top of the C list. At any rate, what Cal said about us dwindling, we have taught college classes in American folk dance. We never use the word square dance because it carries an image, and we just dropped it. American folk dance, which allows us to do anything, circles, mixers, lines, contras, it's all part of our cultural heritage, and it's a folk dance. That means it's a dance that can be learned on the floor. It does not require you to take lessons in a ballet studio for 6 months. You don't walk into a ballet studio and say, teach me Swan Lake. That's not the way you learn. That's not a folk dance. Folk dance is one that you can either stand behind somebody and copy their steps and learn it that way, or be taught it in a walkthrough, as we do in traditional square dancing and contra. One of the college classes we had for students in kinesiology and leisure sciences had a 2-inch thick notebook. Square dancing was 1 page. That was all out of that entire 2-inch thick notebook. Everything else was tests and measurements, national standards, creative dance, all the games and their rules and regulations, how to use your body safely in physical education and so forth. All the teachers of the future dancers had was one page on folk dancing. The only way to sell people on square dancing is to have them dance and have a good time. Cal mentioned he has different formats. We're teaching colonial American dancing. We deliberately chose long waist sets and quadrilles to teach so that they would get a variety. Last year, I think we had 3 different dances and we had 3 different formations. This year, we did, as Cal went to Lloyd Shaw and got all his music on one tape, or possible music on one tape, we looked for an already published tape and then picked dances from it so the teachers could go and get one CD, not tape, excuse me. God, I'm showing my age. You know. Understand now you don't use the vinyl word, you just do this. For 45 records. Anyway, our program in American folk dance that we're presenting this year has 3 dances. One of them is a quadrille. It's supposed to be George Washington's favorite quadrille. By tying it to history and putting a name on it, gives us another hook to hang it on. This is an important thing when you're presenting in the schools. One hook is not enough. You've got to have a lot of reasons for doing something in the schools. So by hooking it to history, we've done that. Incidentally, if you don't know, George Washington, at the age of 14, wrote a little booklet, 114 Rules for Good Social Behavior. And they're lovely. The kids absolutely freak out when you bring this in. One of them is, do not spit on the dance floor.
Oh, my. I think probably we're down to the stage. If anybody has comments or questions, it would be a good time to open it up. Please give your name.
Jim Weber with United Square Dancers America and also through the arts. Cal, I need you to talk with the grant writing committee to tweak some words on a grant that the arts is working on for those key words, buzzwords that needs to be included through this Johnson & Johnson R.J. Reynolds Corporation, probably about a $2 million or better grant that we're working on to put dance in schools, to be able to give the teachers literature and stuff, and here it is, you do it. That, you know, the book that come from California that's been introduced through aphids, sold several copies of it through aphids. That's there. We need to get these committees and people together, Cal, to tweak those words and lines that I like the wording there. It was really good. We need to work together with the committees to tweak that so we can get that grant. And with money, we can do a lot of things. Yeah. And that was, you know, and that's part of this program that we're working on is to put the dance in the schools, but to be able to give the teachers something they can use in the classrooms, use themselves. Now you've got this fire. Now here is contacts for callers, so you can have different. I mean, of course, we got music on. There's music on the CDs and their walkthrough, their cookbook to teach so much. Now invite somebody in, and here's where they can get paid. And now, oh, this is great. Now the next step that needs to be included in that is how to continue after that. Do you join? How do they get an after-school club started? And how they get callers to come in and do that for them. You know, like you said, $1 or $2 for a kid that's there to, you know, to help support that and provide that value to the dance. I think it'll work good.
we have offered a number of schools in our area to do a beginning of the year get-together so that the kids can meet each other, and an end-of-the-year wrap-up dance. If they've had dance during the year, we've said we'll come back in June and do it. We've also done May Day programs where we've prepared the students for a May Day program, which they have to do anyway. And this way is they meet their requirements for physical education, they meet their requirements for American history, and they present a program on stage, kind of. There are many, many opportunities through church groups, through, well, you know, every possible organization that you can offer dancing on this level. What Cal has here is absolutely marvelous. I'm going to take it home and use every one of them with the very, very simple instructions, 5 basics. I taught, or I called for a once-a-month church group for a number of years in Maryland where we did approximately 5 basics, maybe 6. I think we had do-si-do as well because they wanted to do it, and they did it with the arms crossed and the elbows out. Get them in the eye as you go by. Couldn't break them with that. But what we did was each month we would have a star tip or a star instructional thing, and we would feature Grand Square, or we would feature some other variation that they would do just at that dance, and then the next one we didn't do that. We did something else with the original 5, 6 basics.
It's going to be interesting to see what the schools are going to accept. You know, what I get back from the teachers and the contacts I have, they want a very simple program. I've been around several places within the conversations that are going here, and the programs are going successful, and the experiments that are going on are based around doing dance routines, which this is totally based on. It's based around doing dance routines rather than the type of square dancing we do in modern Western square dancing.
That's challenge dancing. You do it after they've learned.
Yeah, and so I think our paradigm of what we're looking at is probably going to have to shift away from the free-form sight calling that we have and back into doing your homework and putting together routines, because this is what that public is demanding. It's interesting to me because if you go to any other form of dance, folk dance, international folk dance, Irish step dance, Scottish dancing, all of these deal with dancing as fixed routines. They do not deal with freeform. In other words, close order drill, if you want the honest truth of what we're doing. It was interesting to me to deal with a couple of the workshops, and I got out of the workshop and I says, they're dealing with choreography created for the next 8 steps. Dance routines deal with choreography created for the next 64 steps. But what we were in some of the workshops, they were dealing with, how does this basic work with this basic? Not with a string that makes a nice floor pattern. I think what's going to have to happen to appeal to the schools and appeal to the teachers is they want a canned routine that has variety enough in it that they can take it and put it in. And if you don't provide that to them, they're not going to buy it. John?
John Zabalski from somewhere or other. 2 questions. One is developmentally, what age kids is that appropriate for? And second, given diversity of learning styles, would it make sense at some point to add to the availability a video component so that those who are visual learners could watch other kids doing it?
All right. Developmentally, we had a pretty good conversation over the weekend with the people that came to the seminar. I think we are pretty much the majority of people agree that probably we should not be doing team dancing that requires partners until grade 4. Now, this involves more than square dancing. This is team concepts of putting them in an organized formation and have them respond to spoken commands. Okay. Before that, from K up through 3, Kids want to have basically role-playing dances. Bob Riggs had a very good explanation for it from the standpoint of developmental things. From K through 3, it is all about me. That the children really aren't involved with their people, and as they, about the time they hit grade 4, then they become involved with the idea that team is good, other people are fine, and I don't mind cooperating with somebody else. But basically from K through 3, their primary focus is within themselves. And so this becomes an attitude problem or a developmental problem of how they view the world. You can teach children to square dance. Yeah, you can teach children square dance in the 1st grade. However, they will not find it to be a pleasant experience when they're high schoolers. This is where we're getting the black eye. And I've had people yell at me about the fact, oh, I can teach 2nd graders square dance. Sure you can. I can teach a dog jump through hoops if I give them enough, incentive. Whether the dog and whether they enjoy it or not is an entirely separate issue. All right, video component, yes, very much. You've got some video that's tied to the program that has been prepared in California. I will say this. If you go and take a look at the video products that are available to the teachers at the AFERD conventions and all these big conventions, they are very sophisticated. I mean, they have a lot of eye candy. If we don't produce the same quality product, it will not sell.
Yes, David Fullaway from Hawaii also, and I'm presently in the process of convincing the state of Hawaii to let us do a workshop for credit. And so some of the buzzwords or actions needed that enhance your cause would be history or social studies, tying it to history or social studies, convincing them that this is a filler for schools on rainy days or any other activity day they may have and want to do a filler for teachers to use. They seem to want to know whether I'm going to provide teachers with a lesson plan, music, knowledge of equipment, and how to set up formations, circles, lines, squares. The people you're talking to before they even let you in want to know this. They want to know if it's going to have follow-up. The state of Hawaii wants follow-up. By follow-up, I mean, what does a teacher have to do after the seminar to indicate to and fill out a report indicating they've done it? And they want to know if they're going to be able to demonstrate and be inspected in a demonstration for a job done and well done. Additional things, convincing reasons for accepting this program when you're talking to people, that this is going to provide listening skills to students. One I picked up from Yona yesterday, that it creates manners. Manners was taught in dance years ago. So I thought I'd throw that out. The manners, it teaches students manners. Dress and self-discipline. These are buzzwords, keywords you use when you're talking to people to convince them that they want this in their school or in the case of the state of Hawaii, within the department. I find that the teacher wants to have a person come in and do the job. If they can get a person to come in, schools in residence or teachers in residence, artists in residence, come in and be paid $10 an hour to do their job for a day, yes, they'd rather have that. The schools want to reduce expenses, I find. They don't want to have people coming in that are going to cost their budget money or their share of the money and have to fight for it. The schools, Department of Education wants to outsource artists in residence as long as they can. These are things I'm finding out, and I hope that helps you in your work and your approaches.
Anything else from the group as a whole? I hope this has helped. I know it's a small crowd, but from small seeds, giant oaks grow. And what we need to do is to talk to each other and see where we go. I think there are a number of different ideas out there about how this proceeds. I mean, Yona and I work on the basis of a broad range of music, a broad range of formations, and a small set of terminology. Other people are still trying to hang on to the fact that we can create modern Western square dancing 2006 through the youth in the schools. I don't know who's right. You know, I think both approaches need to be tried. We need to figure out what's going to work, and time will tell us.
If you're going to introduce modern Western square dancing as it now exists in the schools, you still have to start with 5 basics. And until they're doing that, we're not even going to think about the next steps. So start small, plan to build big. But start small, because if you come in and try to teach them 12 basics, that's it, man. They are out of there. We tell our teachers when we come in to do a program in the schools, or when we're teaching teachers to do programs in the schools, if the kids aren't having fun the very first day, they're not coming back for the second one. So we tell them we're going to let them run a little bit wild. Don't worry about it. We know where they're going. But they've got to enjoy it, or they're not going to come back. So when you're teaching, stop worrying about choreography. Stop worrying about choice of music and things like this that you're concerned about. Make sure that the kids are having a good time. Otherwise, you're dead in the water before you've even gone anywhere.
Greatest reward for me is occasionally we go out to the store and some little girl or some little boy will come dragging their mother across the store to introduce the man that taught them how to dance. That's worth more than any money I get. Got a last word?
Al and I try to teach 4 to 8 sessions with the same kids so that we get a chance to re-expose them. And the last time we finished up at a school that we've been teaching at for 5 years, we got an 80-kid spontaneous group hug on our last day, and there's no money in the world that can buy that.
Thank you for coming.